Okay. So first of all, what we have already concluded. Okay. So GitHub, whether you maintain private, it is your call. Private is something internal. The main value of GitHub will come if you're maintaining GitHub public repositories. Okay. Repos for your practice code. And if there are many repositories and you have coded a lot of nice use cases, then GitHub link, you can include it in your resume, to be included in your resume. So which talks a lot about you basically. If since past 3 months you have been contributing to GitHub projects, it will add more value to your interview process. Okay, we included in your resume as well. The LinkedIn URL is being included right in resume of many people. Like that, GitHub URL is also becoming a standard in the current times. So I would recommend to do that. Okay. Okay. Rest of all, the basic it is again based upon Git. What we have done for Bitbucket, okay, almost similar actions will be working even for GitHub. You just need to understand there is a cloud where the code is going to be centrally available. These were the basics remains the same. Okay, central code will be there in the cloud. Next, in your local machine, you will work with the copy, right? You will make modifications and code changes in your local machine. And you just need to figure out how the way between from this cloud to your local, you will clone, and from your local, how will you push it up? These kind of basic things you just have to, again, just be caring about. Okay? Now, the thing is, because it is built on Git, the same commands which works on a Bitbucket is going to work on Git as well, on GitHub as well. So whatever commands you might be knowing, git clone, git commit, git add, git stash, git push, git pull, same commands apply for both Bitbucket as well as GitHub. And at the same time, the client tool that you might be using, for example, in Bitbucket, we showed the tool like source tree, right? So the same tool as it is going to work even for GitHub also. That means from your local machine and local, if you have that kind of a GitHub graphical interface as a client of Git. So source tree is called as that. Source tree is a graphical or GUI, just you can call it like Git client. It's a Git client tool basically. So the way you were working with Bitbucket in your local, that is going to completely remain the same. Okay, making the modifications if you work with source tree. The only thing will be instead of pointing it to the Bitbucket location, we will be pointing it to the GitHub location. Okay, that's it. Simple, straightforward. Let's quickly jump on with the demonstration of that. Okay, first of all, this is a GitHub profile. You simply go to github.com and then just log in there. You will find multiple sections, blah, 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 details available. I updated my photo long time ago, but I would highly recommend ki, whatever LinkedIn wala nice photo you're putting up, similar profile, maintain it on your GitHub as well. Okay, so Abhi, now I'm like 13 years in the IT industry. Now I'm much into management and stuff like that, and leading like 40 members team. So I'm not building up a lot of things on my GitHub profile because I started my career in like 2010. But for all the tech related guys who are right now hard like into the coding and all that, it is all recommended to have a very strong, solid GitHub profile. Okay, so for me, it's like abhi dadaji ho gaye. Been a long time, 13 years in the IT industry. My skills, my role is different. So that is where I'm not much established on GitHub kind of thing. But yes, for tech roles and all, it is going to be very much useful. Okay, fine. Chalo, that sounds interesting. Now the thing is, the basic remains the same. The code is going to be organized in the form of repositories. So here also they have some way of what? Projects available, and they have repositories available. Okay? So basically project and repository, similar concept is there. You can straight away go ahead creating a repository. Let's say if you create a new, okay, owner, the name of the repository. Okay, the basic fundas remain the same. Let me just summarize for anybody who is not aware of these things. Okay, just as a basic beginner. Okay, first of all, the entire coding that is you are going to do, whatever project you do, anything that you are building up, that all becomes part of the repository. It's nothing but a simple folder. And this folder contains a lot of code related to that project. So generally, your code is always going to be available in the form of repository. Next, this repository is going to be folder is going to be first created in the cloud as an empty repository. Okay, next, in your local machine, you need to then set up this cloud repository in your local machine. There is a way of working. First of all, step number one, you go to the cloud, you create a repository. It is going to add an empty repository. Step number two, you take this empty repository and set up in your local machine. Okay, step number three, you make modifications in your local machine using your ID or whatever, and you're making changes here. Step number four, you move this code back to the cloud. So simple, four steps. Okay, if you want to work with this, first, create empty repository or a folder in GitHub. Step number two, okay, set up in GitHub, as in this is running in cloud. It is not in your local machine. Okay. Second, set that up in your local machine. Step number three, make or write code in local. Do the testing and everything before you really put the code back to the cloud. You have to do the testing rightly, make sure it is compilation wise working strongly, it is building properly, and once you feel it is good enough, yes, you can go ahead putting it back to the right code in your local and make it stable. And then comes the fourth step, put it back to cloud. Okay, fine. All these basic four steps. Chalo, let's create it. Jumping in here. So I am the owner of this repository because it is my account. Repository name. You can name anything basically. Let's say 14 step. Okay. Test repo. Name something logical. Okay. Next. Now you can choose about private and public. When we started today's call, I mentioned that maintain some proper public repositories also on your profile. That means if anybody accesses your GitHub link, we are saying in your resume, you can include this GitHub link. And if there are nice public projects with good standards, nice use cases, if you have built it up properly, it adds more value to your technical profile. So for that, yes, you should keep having many repositories, many projects, and maybe some mini projects, this project, that project, everything publicly hosted. That showcases how much hands-on technical knowledge you have. Dekho guys, एक चीज you need to understand. We are into a digital world, and digital evidences are proof about your identity. Nothing but if you are constantly coding, and if you're really good in coding, you don't have to even convince that during your interview, your GitHub profile talks about it. So it's not about convincing a lot of people. It's like you work in such a manner that people are already convinced by you. Okay? And that is where digital identity in the current times is going to make it easy for you to convince anyone that you're good in a particular topic or a subject or whatever. So that is where maintain strong digital profile. You need to be very greatly active on LinkedIn, sharing technical value add content, which showcases you are an expert in your field. And second, maintain nice solid code in GitHub on a regular basis. Both these two activities are proof that you are good in your particular skill set, right? So please stick with these basics. Over time, it will give you amazing returns. Baki market convincing mein nikal jayega ki I am good and I am this and that, but for you, your work is going to speak, and actions are always louder, no matter how much you're trying to convince someone, right? So please maintain some public, but for this demonstration, I'm going to maintain it private itself because I don't really want to showcase it to the rest of the world. It's only for demo purpose, fine. And then, okay, the rest of the things are all fine. Go ahead with the defaults. Fine, creating a repository. Okay, so an empty repository is created. Now the thing is, we are done with the step number one, which says create an empty repository. Fine, it is created. There is no code here. All happy. No code, basically. It's even giving the commands, right? We said there were two things, guys, right? In order to work with Git, okay, like how do you interact from your local machine to Git? There are two ways. One is you can straight away use Git commands, or you can use some, let's say, Git client. TausiefS is kind of a Git client, and like that, many other clients are also available in the market. You can search for whichever you're comfortable. But both approaches are there, and it gets the same results. So when you are looking here, it is giving you these commands on how exactly you can work with commands in order to accomplish what you really want. Okay, so command line knowledge भी है, but it's a choice. I am using a graphical because it is easy. Fat button click and work is done, because there is so much things to remember. So not getting stuck with the commands. But yes, many people use commands as well. So it's a matter of choice. There's nothing good or bad about it. It's a choice. Okay, fine. All these things are good. Now I want to do the step number 2, which is I will be using source tree as my command tool as a GitHub client. And we need to now do this. Set up that folder in the local machine. How do you do that? One standard way. Okay, this is possible via clone, okay, or checkout operation. Generally, ideally, for the first time when you're doing, people always prefer कि clone se le lo, fresh copy will come to you. And I always stick with clone itself. I create a new local folder and clone kar leta hu, so I get the latest code. So I would also highly recommend, don't get confused between this, that ek le lo, kaam ho jata hai, and that is what is important for you. So clone it out. How do you clone it? Simple. Open source tree. Now there will be some commands to even clone, okay? But now open source tree. In source tree, you need to set up this GitHub account before you can really start working on this. Okay, so that is the step number 1. You might have to do this thing in source tree. Okay, add GitHub account so that you it's a tool. It needs its own settings. So you can do that. Let's say you just click on this plus on the right hand side. There is plus. Okay, there is something called as local, and then there is a remote. If you click on this remote, here there is some option available key add an account. So if you can see in my source tree, this is the source tree app, this logo that you see, this is a source tree UI. You can find it for Windows and Mac. I'm not sure whether it's available for Ubuntu. But here in source tree, if you click on remote, it talks about which remote repositories you want to connect to. It is my ID, my source tree is already synced up with Bitbucket, and I have even added GitHub here. Okay? And if you see, just because I clicked GitHub, it is able to connect to that remote repositories and able to pull it and make it visible here as well. Okay? If you don't have it, you simply need to click on add account. Here with source tree, you can create so many type of accounts. Just see. That means so many servers. Bitbucket is there, GitHub, and then enterprise versions is there. GitLab is another kind of a tool which is also there in the market right now. So matlab aate rahenge yaar. New and new tools will always keep coming. You need to know how to work with. That's it. Okay? So just choose GitHub. Provide your credential details here, what username it is. It will ask for the passwords and the basic setup. Do all of that setup, and then eventually GitHub account is going to be visible here. Once the account is visible, either you can continue from here. Okay, just the clone option is available. You can straight away clone from here. It opens up the pop-up and does the rest of the drama. I can simply click on clone. It comes here. Okay, it is now trying to load and things like that. Okay, now this pop-up, let me just explain. Okay, while doing some local machine setup, I even experimented with a personal access token, and I have my personal account-based access. So that's where GitHub is asking me. I can do some setup to remove it. And if only one account is there, it will just work. But you can ignore that. There you go. Simple. We are doing a clone operation. It is trying to read first repository. Then it has identified that this is a Git repository. Okay, it is asking multiple time pop-up because I have multiple ways set up. Okay, and they go by default, yes, there is no branch here. So that means it continues with the default main branch. Now there is just a terminology change. While you were working with Bitbucket, okay, in Bitbucket, you used to call that branch as the master branch. In GitHub, they are just calling that as the main branch. Okay, both works in a similar manner, no worries there. But yes, here it is called as main branch, and there it is called as master branch. Now you can do the checkout. Now this is one way of checking out or cloning. Okay, if you want to do it in a different manner, you can simply go here, file, clone. Okay, it is also going to give you this, and then you just need to copy this URL which is specified here. Okay, that is second way of doing it. The one was you go there from remote, click on the, that is another option. Otherwise, simply you can come here, file, clone, it will give you the same pop-up, and this URL, you copy it from this place, HTTPS case, I just copy this, plug it in, it will then further scan it, see that it is a Git repository, and all of this work will happen. Okay, fine, chalo, let me clone it. And chalo guys, it's 2:30. Khana vina time pe khaya karo. So don't delay that part. Have the lunch properly. Around 1:30 ko make it your lunch time. IT may be public 1:30 to 2:30 lunch jati hai. So you also try to habituate to a proper food time. Okay. So the cloning is successful. Now, एक चीज यहाँ पे कि somewhere it is added in this location. So ideal your way of working should be, guys, your way of working should be this path, you choose it properly. Accidentally right now I did not care about it, so it is gone somewhere else, but you need to choose the right folder path where you want to check out this code. Okay, so right now it is just gone somewhere. I would highly recommend to choose maybe D drive workspace. Inside that you maintain this folder space. It is going to be really required. Okay, fine, but right now at least let me open it. C drive. Yeah, bhai. Okay, users, sgen, users, sgen, document, and inside document we have created 14th September repository. Yeah, it is there. An empty repository created. Okay, fine. Closing it. Okay, yahan tak to code aa gaya. Now the next thing is we need to put this code into our IDE so that we can work with it. Okay, so right now we are here at this step. Simple. We have created and cloned this up. Now the next thing is write code in local and make it stable. So for this I will be putting, okay, if I have any project in my local, I can simply replace it here. So for example, I do have a project with me. So this is my code. Now anything, now whatever programming language or technology you have, so this Git and all concepts are technology irrelevant. Okay, anything works out. So fine, let me just go in my local. Kuch to code leke. Okay, I don't care what exactly is the code. It could be any programming language code. I'm just copying this, coming here, pasting it here. Okay, fine. Next, I want to integrate it into my IDE so that I can work with this code. Basically, this is just regular coding that you do. Nothing much about it. So I'm doing Eclipse, Java. So Java mein Maven command. So existing Maven project I'm trying to get in. Okay, fine. I want this as my repository name. So here it comes to your technology, whatever you're coding, choose that, use the form, load it. Okay, it is trying to now do the Maven imports and stuff like that. Let it run. So by that way, we are doing this number step. You have cloned it into your local, and then you're trying to write code in your local and trying to make it stable. Okay. So just see, now it is doing some class path settings, it's reading the project and stuff like that. But now interesting thing, like we said, in GitHub, the terminology is main. In Bitbucket, it was master. So that is where if you see here, automatically the main branch is there. Okay, the branching model, you can also keep it similar. Okay, now we will get into that branching. But first, let's see. So we have built this main. Now the next stuff is we need to put this code back into the repository. So we are done with this step. Write code in the local. So what we did, we took an empty folder. There we made our local project. You know your stuff, how to write it proper, packages, dependencies, and all that. Your code is gone into this. Any technology works the same way. You put your code here inside this folder. It is working. You tested it. Now you're confident. Now comes the last step where this code will be moved back into cloud. How do we use that? Again, two approaches, either commands or Git client like source tree. Now let me go to the source tree. Now this is the beauty of it. Okay? This is the beauty of it. How you can check whatever code changes. Initially, there was no code yet. It was an empty project. But now, because we added all these other projects, if you see here, all your source code, whichever you coded, is being shown. Okay, so this guy is trying to add this kind of a project. Okay, whatever these code might be. And then you can simply say initial, put some logical messages, initial draft of project. Okay, this is fine, initial draft of project. Now, there are certain actions of how you take your code from your local machine to the cloud machine. Okay, first action is, okay, stage or git add. Second is commit. Third is push. You might see it pretty nicely here. For example, there is a minus symbol here. Let's experiment. If you do a minus, it comes down. So there is a two things, unstaged files and staged files. So let's say if you want to put only this much code into your cloud GitHub, so then you can just do minus of whatever code you don't want to put in, it will come down. And then only these many files, if you commit it, only this much code goes. That means in your local, if you have a lot of code, you can choose to not commit it. That kind of flexibility is up. But if you want to put everything, you can simply do a stage all, or this action is called as add, git add or stage all. Both are one and the same. You can just keep adding it, or you can do a stage all, moves the code into here. And if it is visible here, then it is going to go to production. Okay? Production as in, yeah, it will go to the cloud environment. Okay, fine. So what we did, step number one, we did the git add to choose what files we want. Next, we wrote a write message, put a logical message. Next, commit it. Okay, committing bhi ho gaya. After that, I'm just doing a push. Okay, mera ye ID, like my machine keeps popping this up because I have multiple accounts set up. Fine. This fetch basically just is for refresh. Just F5 refresh karte, like that fresh refresh it, it will tell you your local change versus whatever is there. Okay? So don't worry, it's just a kind of refresh which pulls the latest state. But now if you just see, yes, the code is available in master, everything is all happy. Okay? Now the thing is, if you now go to the browser, where is our GitHub? Okay, and you're just trying to refresh here. Okay, 1 minute ago your code is committed and here the branch naming is main. Okay, now you need to understand how do we work on